Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com.
And this is Travis from Oddfellows Thoughts on YouTube.
Welcome back, Travis. It's good to talk to you again.
Pleasure to be here.
And today, Travis and I are going to discuss the recently concluded Trinity War, running through the Justice League series and a few of the few tie-ins there with Constantine, Pandora, and Phantom Stranger. But first of all, Travis, I wanted to talk to you about this because I honestly was a bit surprised when I found out that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm misremembering some things that you've said on YouTube or discussions we've had off mic, but I thought you had said that you were excited about this or looking forward to reading this story.
Yep. I was.
And so that kind of surprised me because you on this podcast in the past have said that you don't like events. You don't like event books.
I hate event books.
And granted, Trinity War is not. I wouldn't say it's a true event or an event book. It's more of a line event within the Justice League stuff. But it's sort of close. It's close enough. We'll call it close enough. So talk about that. Why did you want to read this? Considering that it's a quote unquote event thing.
Sure. Well, the first thing that works for it is I happen to be collecting all three of the titles that the event is in. So that works for me in the fact that I didn't have to go and read books or collect books, single issues of something that normally I don't read and don't have an interest in, because if I had an interest in it, I'd be reading it. So that's the first thing that works for me, is the fact that I'm already reading all three books. So I like the characters. I like the Justice League characters. And when I say Justice League, I mean the whole scope of the different Justice Leagues. They always interested me. The idea of a Trinity War interested me. Of course, it's different than what I originally thought potentially the book might be about.
Okay, keep that thought, because I want to come back to that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, and it's been long enough. It's been long enough since DC's had one. I mean, because really, for me, I don't consider this an event book like what's coming next, the Forever Evil that's coming out of this will be an event book, because it's its own thing. But DC's taken enough time to do other things before they started ramping up into this kind of a thing that that's kind of looking forward to it, I guess, for that. There's been enough time. It's not like there's an event book every quarter, mandated to come out, and so you get the fatigue of all the books.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like I said, for me personally, I don't consider this an event book. It's a crossover. It has crossovers in it, which annoy me some too, because like I said, I don't like having to buy books that normally I wouldn't. But in this case, it was all stuff that I was getting anyway. And it's kind of cool to get that many superheroes together in one place.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So, yeah, like you said, for me, I was getting all three of the Justice League books anyway. Plus I was at the time getting Pandora, since it was a new DC title. It featured that character from Flashpoint. So I wanted to see what they were going to do with that. So I was going to get that. I was already getting Constantine, and just so happened that issue 5 was one of the tie-ins. So I was going to read it anyway. The only thing I didn't read, because I dropped it a while ago, is Phantom Stranger. But fortunately, you read that, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, like you, I was excited about it just because it was. Let's see, back in May of 2012 for Free Comic Book Day, they came out with the New 52 Free Comic Book Day issue, and that's where we get the first glimpse of the Trinity War itself. Something named the Trinity War, and you have that big old splash page at the end of that where you have Superman plowing into the new Green Lantern with that column, and all the superheroes are on the page fighting each other, and it was interesting who was fighting who, and
Right.
Batman had Pandora's box, and looks like he was trying to get away. All this stuff is like, ooh, what is this? And since Flashpoint, we hadn't had a DC event. And that was an interesting, like you said, interesting concept that DC would not, immediately plow into something like that after the New 52 launch. So that's kind of neat. But it was interesting to me, though, like you said, when we first saw that bit in the Free Comic Book Day issue, it seemed like, and I'm going off my bad memory here, but based on that and the kind of the news coming out of that issue and the reaction, it seemed like Trinity War was supposed to be something bigger than it actually turned out to be. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yes. I really think that originally when they cooked this up, it was going to be probably a separate book, its own The Event thing.
Yeah.
Some along the way, obviously, they came up with other ideas of what they thought they wanted to do, and the Forever Evil spun out to be the real event book. And then this is kind of the lineup going into that, right?
Yeah. And I'm not faulting them for that, because ideas change and
Sure.
and directions change. I'm totally okay with that. I just found it interesting that it seemed like a bigger deal than it actually turned out to be. But so yeah, Trinity War is definitely the prelude to Forever Evil and the whole
Right.
Villains Month thing and all this stuff. So I like I said, I don't care about that. I don't care that the Trinity War was kind of downgraded, if you will, or at least we think it was downgraded to some degree.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's unless you have something else to say about that, Travis, let's move on.
Okay.
Oh, I wanted to mention that this will be a spoilerific episode. We're going to go into details of each issue, so you are warned. Let's see. I want to step back. So Trinity War actually starts with the prelude, what they actually call it, the prelude, with Pandora #1. But I want to step back a little bit and talk about what kind of fed into Trinity War eventually, and talk a bit about the end of Flashpoint #5, which is now 2 years old? Because we got that in August of 2011.
Mhm.
And so there's that scene, that 2-page splash scene where Flash is, he's running into the time stream trying to repair things, and then you see Pandora in the middle, and you see all the three universes that got basically combined into the New 52 universe. And I wanted to point that out because this will play into what we find out later. So, Flash says, I see 3 timelines. Why? And Pandora says, because the history of heroes was shattered into 3 long ago, splintered to weaken your world for their impending arrival. So you must all stand together, the timelines must become one again, and then we get the New 52. So, their impending arrival. All right, so let's keep that in mind. And then, just briefly, so we get a mention of essentially the secret society of supervillains. In Justice League #6, there's this one page towards the end of the story where this is after the Justice League has defeated Darkseid and they essentially form the group. There's this, like I said, there's a scene in London here. It's all dark and shadowy. There's a guy standing at a corner, and he's all in shadow, and it looks like he has this cane in his hand. And what's interesting about this is, and I did not register this, Travis, when I read this issue. This came out in February of 2012. I did not register this, I don't think anyway, until I went back in preparation, doing my homework for this episode. There is a shadow. There's this guy's shadow here, and it looks either some sort of demonic looking, because it's got points out of the head and it's got a pointed chin. But what immediately came to mind is it reminded me of Batman, and that actually does come into play later. We'll talk about that. Anyway, so this guy's waiting at this corner. This other guy comes up and talks about how the Justice League, all these heroes, there's a new one showing up every day. They're calling them all superheroes. And then the guy that was standing there says, well then, I guess they'll call us supervillains. And the final panel is a shot of that coin the skull with the skull on it that we've been seeing throughout this run. And not only the Trinity War issues, but the Justice League issues running up to this, the Trinity War stuff. So there you go. There's that. And then, like I said, the New 52 Free Comic Book Day issue came out a couple months after Justice League number 6. We've already discussed that. We get a little bit about Pandora, her origin, how she was cursed by the that group of
Council of Wizards or whatever.
Yeah, the council. Yeah, exactly. And which, when I read that, it made me really empathetic towards that character because, she did something by accident. It appeared, and she was paying the price for it. And then, okay, so now jump forward. Here we go. Trinity of Sin, Pandora, number 1, and it says prequel, a prequel to Trinity War, not prelude. Okay, just as an aside, I find it really curious. Why do they call it Trinity of Sin, Pandora? Where's the Trinity in this book? There's only Pandora.
Well, because then they retitled Phantom Stranger as Trinity of Sin,
Sure.
Phantom Stranger.
Sure. So where's the Trinity of Sin, the question?
Well, where's the question?
That's the question. All right.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that.
All right. So Pandora number 1. Let's see here. I'm just going to give a brief synopsis, and we'll just throw out our thoughts and anything else, Travis. So feel free to do that at any point. Let's see here. So we get Pandora's origin story in detail. So she's cursed to walk the earth, and she's always trying to destroy the 7 deadly sins that she released from Pandora's box. She meets up with Vandal Savage, which comes into the story later. There's a training montage because you got to have that. And then the wizard Shazam shows up and tells her that the box is the key, and basically the council was wrong for doing what they did to her, which really ticks her off. Anyway, the box is the key. It holds great power that can end the curse and rid the world of the sins. And he also tells her only the strongest of heart or the darkest heart can open it. And so Pandora ponders this. Who's the strongest of heart that she knows? That's your cue.
Oh, Superman.
Superman, of course. Who else, right?
I guess I just out of curiosity, has this version of Superman proven to be that?
Yeah, it is interesting.
Or are we just supposed to assume that because he's Superman, he's the big blue Boy Scout from all the years of him being the big blue Boy Scout, that he would be the purest of heart?
Yeah, well,
strongest heart.
I think they're playing with the idea of the perception of Superman as opposed to what we've actually been reading, because this Superman seems a little bit more brash, a little bit more in your face, and which I have no problem with. I actually really like that characterization of him, but.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was just asking. I mean, I'm not whatever. I mean,
but obviously Superman, purest of, or the strong. But what does that mean? Strongest of heart. I guess you could. I would think perhaps that he would have that quality, whatever that really means. But it, obviously we'll talk about it in a bit. But it doesn't turn out the way that she expects, which is good because this is a 6-part story and. It would be over pretty quickly if it turned out to be that he turned out to be the guy who could open the box.
I don't know. I think that'd be interesting.
Well, yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's move into part 1, Justice League number 22. Oh, I forgot to mention. I want to mention the creative teams behind each issue. The team on Pandora number 1 is. Well, I'm just going to read the last names on the cover here. Fox, Sampier, Zurcher, and Cifuentes. are the guys behind this issue. Did you have anything else to add about Pandora #1, Travis?
No, I didn't get it.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I thought you did.
No, that's right. No.
So you haven't read any of the Pandora issues?
No, I have not.
Okay. Did you read the Constantine issue?
No.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. So you'll talk about Phantom Stranger and I'll talk about the other tie-ins. All right. So Justice League #22 by Jeff Johns, Ivan Reyes, Rod Reyes, and Claire Albert. Justice League #22, Part 1 of Trinity War. Okay, very quickly. Madame Xanadu shows up, which is great because I love that character. And now that Demon Knights is over, I don't get to see her much. So it was nice to see her in here, especially drawn by Mr. Reyes. This woman comes to Madame Xanadu and wants Xanadu's help because there's some evil in her, she thinks. And so while Xanadu is doing that, while Xanadu is reading her, she's doing the what do you call them, the tarot cards. Mm-hmm. And that basically gives her some visions. And the first thing that we see is this panel of what looks like, to me, Travis, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman Wonder Woman and Superman are floating, Batman standing nearby on the top of a building, and they're overlooking a city that's been devastated. There's fires everywhere and destruction and mayhem. And Xanadu says, I see the aftermath of a great war, and I see one word that defines it: Trinity. Mm-hmm. So did you take it to that it was our what we commonly refer to those three as DC's Trinity?
Well, of course, and they know that when they wrote it that was going to be the case, right? Because we've referred to them as the Trinity for how many years now?
Well, forever, as far as I'm concerned, but
right. Well, and in the past, there's been books written called the Trinity, hasn't there? I mean,
there's a couple, yes. Yeah.
Yes,
But you took this panel that is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, right?
When I first read this, oh yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to check on that. Okay.
Didn't you?
Yeah. Oh yes, I definitely did. And I still do to some degree here because I mean it looks like Batman. It looks like the Superman suit that we're used to seeing now. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But what the dialogue, however,
is weird.
Yeah. So it says here. Superman says here, "There's nothing left to fight for." Wonder Woman says, "Yes, there is." Batman says, "We have to escape. We have to save him."
Yeah, that Batman's lines are the ones that puzzled me, even when I first time I read this through. And it still puzzles me. Who's the him they're saving?
Okay, good. Well, we'll come back to that because I have an idea here. But what really bothered me was Superman saying there's nothing left to fight for. When Superman gives up, then there's some bad stuff going on. Let's see. Xanadu. So she continues on with her reading. We find out Shazam is part of this as well. And I'm gonna start going through this real quick because we have a lot of issues to get through here. Basically, Pandora comes to Superman and gives him the box because he's the strongest of heart. She thinks, right?
Right.
However, it goes badly, and she leaves. Superman he gets kind of possessed and looks kind of evilish. So she ends up leaving, and she's very distraught and surprised at that. Meanwhile, Shazam he decides to go to Kandak to bury Black Adam's ashes after the events of some previous issue or two. The Justice League and Justice League of America also head off to Kandak because they're afraid of what may happen while Shazam is there, which I found that interesting. If they decided just to let him do his thing, this whole thing probably would have turned out differently. But superheroes, they got to interfere, right?
Yeah.
Xanadu makes the comment that someone in the JLA is not who they appear to be, which I went, So we get the first inkling that
there's a mole.
There's a mole.
Yeah.
There's a traitor. There's something afoot here. And so, of course, then you start doing that. Did you do the guessing game? Well, who is it? Who in the JLA is not who they appear to be?
Well, yeah, of course.
And who did you guess?
I was always suspect of Martian Manhunter, that he was playing his own game.
Yeah, and I agree.
That implied that, not necessarily that somebody was not who they say they are, as in, Firestorm isn't really Firestorm or anything, but that his motivations are not what they seem to be. That was my assumption.
Well,
because throughout the DC universe, the New 52, Martian Manhunter has kind of operated that way, or that's how he's been shown to operate, is kind of doing his own whatever. So
right, and the Justice League and Martian Manhunter have had their conflicts in the past. We've seen hints of that. I like you, I thought perhaps it was the Martian Manhunter, especially since there was that scene, I think it was in the last issue, the previous issue of Justice League, where he helps Adam find this. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, he and then tells her, "Don't tell anybody that I was here."
Right.
So it kind of looks like that he's the guy, right? Or perhaps it's very strongly hinted that he's the guy. So let's see. Shazam and Superman. Shazam. I can't do it. Shazam and Superman have a bit of a tussle in Kandak, and the Justice League and JLA basically are about ready to have the traditional superhero group fight.
Yeah.
But then the Question shows up in the issue with what I call his crazy board, with all the news clippings and pictures and yarn connecting this point to that point, and it says on the board, "Who is the evil behind the evil?" What did you think of that panel, Travis?
Well, that full page spread where he's staring at it, everything directs back to Superman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know. I'm not sure what to take of it. I thought I was curious. The page before that, the bottom three panels, of course, has our quote unquote Trinity of Sin in it. Because it has Pandora still saying that she's got to find somebody to open the box, and you've got Phantom Stranger saying that it's time for the Stranger to be involved, and then him and then the Question, questioning. Well, it certainly, that panel would lead the reader to believe that somehow, Superman is going to be the bad actor, because all the strings and everything will point back to him or center from him. Everything centers around Superman. So that's how I took it.
Yeah, I kind of took that to mean basically, the bit about him having the strongest heart, and then what happens immediately after that panel or that page. Right. It made sense to me that, and what happens is that the new Dr. Light shows up, which I really like that character based on the few, basically a few panels that he shows up in. He seems like a pretty reasonable guy.
Right.
Unlike the Dr. Light from the previous DC universe, especially the way that, Identity Crisis portrayed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he's trying to talk everybody down from this confrontation, and then his powers kind of go a little crazy. He says, "Superman, he's a solar battery. I can't." And then he blasts Wonder Woman. Of course, Superman goes all crazy.
Sure.
Because they're a couple now. Yeah. And then so within 2 pages you get another full page panel here with Superman blowing Dr. Light's head off with his heat vision.
Yep.
So coming back to the question there, so that's I read that, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So obviously Superman's not going to kill someone just outright. So something's happening to Superman, and so that's where I took that whole that him as the centerpiece of the crazy board. So someone was behind this. And that's a theme that actually runs through a lot of these issues, is that they're trying to figure out basically who framed Superman.
Right. Or some of them believe Superman was framed, and some of them are, like Waller, is happy to pin it on Superman.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because she just sees it as the downfall of the Justice League, which was what her whole point was from the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Well, and of course there's this on that page following the big the fry scene. Um, the question is like, who is trying to impute the Man of Steel? So that that's a direct.
Right.
So there you go. There's that. And then curiously, the woman that came to Xanadu at the beginning of this issue reveals that she's not who she claimed to be. And in fact, she is plastique and apparently blows up Xanadu's shop with her in it. The Atom then is shown basically yelling, "Stop! Please stop!" And I forgot to mention a few pages before this, she says something to Element Woman about how she should not have joined the Justice League. Yeah, I never should have done this. And so that that was very curious, and that will play a major part here in a bit. And then the confrontation that's been building all issue happens, and you have the Justice League and Justice League of America duking it out with Martian Manhunter going after Superman in the foreground, which is pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
And then the issue ends with this mysterious guy in a hat, and he is talking to someone on the computer screen. And he says, "Thanks to me, everyone will actually believe that Superman's killed Dr. Light." And then the very last panel is Xanadu's tarot cards, and it shows him. And on the card it says The Outsider. And so that's who this guy is. He is the Outsider. And that will play into stuff that's coming up. So, of course, when I saw that, I immediately went back to who the Outsider used to be in the DC universe.
And who was that?
Well, in the Silver Age, Alfred Pennyworth was.
Right.
So, and the guy kind of looks like Alfred. Sort of, a little bit, right? So I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on with this?
Yeah.
But then I also went back to the Flashpoint miniseries that came out, and there was one called The Outsider.
Right, and that's the one I didn't read.
Okay. Well, you know what? Actually, I didn't either when it came out, but I ended up buying it some months ago. But I read it last night before we were recording today in preparation for this, just in case it might have something to do with this. It just seems like too big of a coincidence that we have this character called the Outsider in the Flashpoint universe, and then we have this Trinity War character, the Outsider. But they end up not being the same character at all. They don't appear to have the same. Well, in the Outsider in the Flashpoint series he appears to be like this. He appears to be composed of rock or some sort of substance like that, right? He's very dense. Let's put it that way. But this guy just seems to be a human guy, although, well, I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so there's that. So did you have any thoughts about part one?
Yeah, a couple things. One, the whole Outsider thing, and the Alfred Pennyworth. I guess we'll talk about that at the end.
Yes.
Them digging into the depths that far back to pull some. Well, so after seeing the Outsider card, I went, oh, okay. So then I went back and started looking at the cards. And there's the superhero card, the Superman card says the hero on it, and the hero is scratched out. But the card that's really curious, most of all, out of all of them, they all make pretty much sense, except for the Cyborg card on that big splash page where Superman's fighting Martian Manhunter. The Cyborg card is the Grid.
Oh, son of a gun. I missed that. Holy crap. Talk about telegraphing.
Yeah. Which, at the time I was, looking at it, I was like, okay, well, yeah, I can see how he's called the Grid because of, his networking and that sort of stuff. But then, later on, when we get into later issues, then it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, wow.
But, yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I chuckled over every time it happens, it's happened multiple times in in multiple stories, I guess. But it's always funny that first time that not Captain Marvel, that Shazam, punches Superman and realizes that he can punch out Superman.
Yeah.
Because he is a kid. The thrill of being able to, punch basically the strongest guy on the planet and make him go sailing is pretty cool. But that was fun. I was very excited reading the first issue. When the first issue came out, it seemed like some crazy stuff was going to happen, so I was pretty excited.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a pretty darn good first issue for this story. Mm-hmm. Laying the seeds for what comes later. I want to touch on what you said about the Superman Shazam tussle. Mm-hmm. What I was talking about before about how Superman has been portrayed in the New 52. They're fighting, and Shazam says, "You aren't so tough, Superman." And then Superman. And have you noticed how they draw Superman with his eyes glowing with his heat vision a lot?
Yeah.
When he's fighting,
he's pretty menacing. He looks. I know some other Superman fans who don't like that. They don't like this. What they consider, well, it's kind of like the Superman Unchained, in that he seems to always be dark and these glowing red eyes all the time, and he looks evil for to some degree. And they don't like that. They don't like the portrayal of him seeming to be a much more
sinister character,
sinister and violent person. That punching it out is the answer, as opposed to being a nice guy.
Okay. Well, anyway, I like his Superman's response here, because he, like I said, he has his his heat vision glowing eyes, and his fist is ready to strike back, and he says, "You haven't seen me be yet."
Right.
And I really dig that characterization of Superman when it's called for, and that's the difference here. I think that DC needs to maintain is that he'll be like this when he needs to be, but otherwise, he's more or less the same Superman we've kind of grown to know.
Right.
So I like that aspect of him. Okay, let's move on. Mm-hmm. Part 2. This is Justice League of America number 6 by Jeff Johns. I believe it's co-written by Jeff Lemire. Yeah. Mm-hmm. With Doug Mahnke as penciler. Let's see. The fight continues here. Vibe senses something beyond this world. Superman demands to be locked up after single-handedly stopping the fight, which I thought was a really cool scene. He's just killed a man, which for Superman that's huge, and devastating for this guy. And his heat vision seems to be out of control, and he's telling people to get away from him at first. But then the fight's continuing, and he's kind of there. He's got his hands over his eyes, so he can't really see what's going on, and he keeps saying, "Stop, stop, stop this," and he stop this right now, and then he punches the ground and sends everybody flying in that great 2-page scene. Yeah. Just showing again how powerful this guy really is. I mean, this is probably nothing really, but in the context of having all these powerful beings around him, the fact that he can stop them by doing that. I thought that was pretty cool. And then there's I don't want to hurt anyone else. I killed a man, and then Wonder Woman comes over to him to comfort him a little bit, and I thought that was a nice scene. Anyway, Trevor's Justice League of America team, they take Superman in to Argus, and once there, and they've got him kind of locked up, and he's got this thing over his head, and he says he has a hard time seeing or hearing through. I don't know. It was kind of weird that I guess they have this technology that can somehow dampen Superman's powers, I suppose. Anyway, there's this great few page scene here where Superman and Batman are talking. Again, just great characterization here, because Batman notices or tells Superman, "You haven't stopped coughing since we got here. I've never heard you cough." Mm-hmm. So it's like, wow, this is a big deal. If Batman's concerned, again, so Johns and Lemire, I think, are doing an excellent job of portraying how important some of these seemingly small items or events are in the story. At least I think so. Superman demands to know about the man he killed, and Batman tells him. And then again, he asks, did Dr. Light have a family? And Batman answers him, yes, a wife and 3 daughters. And that one little panel of Superman, pursing his lips in anguish. That's how I take it anyway. I thought that was, again, very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman arrives. Yeah, here it is. Diana, is that you? I can't hear very well suddenly. I think it's the helmet, and then he coughs. And then again, she just puts her hands on his and says, I'm here, to comfort him. Anyway, they talk about Pandora's box and how that Wonder Woman thinks that may have affected Superman. And she tells Batman it's real, which,
right.
Well, I love Batman's reaction. Obviously, Pandora is as real as you and the Amazons.
Yeah.
So he just accepts it. But a box unleashed entities that made men evil. And Wonder Woman says it's the truth. Batman, men are evil because they choose to be, not because some spirits whispered in their ear. And I thought that was interesting because we are shown in Pandora #1 that the sins of mankind obviously do have a direct impact on humankind. So I thought that was interesting dichotomy there between these two ideas. Anyway, so Wonder Woman decides she's going to go find out more about the box, and goes to Hephaestus, demanding to know about it because, as we have learned over the years, about Greek mythology, the Greek gods created Pandora's box to contain all those evils of mankind to protect us, and then it was Pandora who, unwittingly or knowingly, however, depending on how you view the myth, unleashes them. But Wonder Woman finds out from Hephaestus that, well, we didn't actually create the box. He says there are other magics in this world, Diana, magics that even the gods of Olympus can't control. Zeus tried. He and the others, the council, used Pandora to open it because even they were scared of the box. So here we go. So interesting that Hephaestus, now could be that he doesn't quite know all the information, but he claims that the council used Pandora to open it, and then the council supposedly cursed her for opening it.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to take that, other than either there's just misinformation out there, which they do kind of play on in this whole time about Pandora's box, what all that means in terms of mythology and whatnot, but or what I took it as more likely is that they started out with this one idea. This is how they're going to go with it as far as Pandora goes, and then the story as it was unfolding, they decided to tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but then again, we're given these two different ideas and these two different issues, and so which one is right? And I'm not saying that one or the other has to be right, has to be the answer, but I found it interesting that there seems to be a difference of how these things are going, especially when Jeff Johns is the one behind all of this. So I would think you'd have a better idea of how he wants the story to go. But anyway, I'll stop there. So Wonder Woman heads off. She joins the Justice League Dark because who else can help her find the box? But
right.
People who
other magical people.
Exactly. So she does that. Then the Question shows up to basically take Superman out of Argus. He and then we see that the Question can appear as other people when he wants to. And that is how the issue ends, with the Question asking, do you want to find out who really killed Dr. Light? All right, Travis, is there anything about this issue you want to comment on?
No, I mean you touched on the things that I thought was interesting. The whole, we've been, Greek mythology and the Pandora's box, and then find out that it's not, theirs, and and stuff that. And of course, Hephaestus is suggesting that they just destroy it if you find it. Quit trying to open this stupid thing and just get rid of it. But no, this issue wasn't as gripping for me. I mean, it was interesting. There were interesting parts. The coughing part, that part of it was interesting. But yeah, to me, this issue was more about Wonder Woman running around trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I felt the same way. There wasn't a whole lot of plot necessarily or plot advancement in this issue, but again, I really reacted to the little character moments between the Trinity in this issue. I also wanted to point out we get another bit of Adam saying, "I need to come clean. I want to talk to Batman." And then also Amanda Waller goes to Firestorm and basically says, "Can you make kryptonite?"
Yeah.
So she's still playing her game.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's go on to part 3. This is Justice League Dark, number 22, by Jeff Lemire and Michael Janin. Great to have Michael Janin on the art on this, because I've really liked his work since the beginning of this series. And we find out immediately that Xanadu is not dead. Thank you. Because I was really ticked when in that scene in Justice League 22 where they seemingly blew her up. I was really mad. But anyway, she's alive, and she has a conversation with the Outsider, and he has the long cane, so that is the guy from Justice League number 6. I have to wonder, Travis. So the Outsider makes a comment about how her ability to see the future may yet prove valuable to him. So why the subterfuge in making her appear dead? I mean, it makes sense, obviously, in the story to the characters involved, but why do that to us as the reader? Why make us think for 2 issues of this story that she's dead? What's the point in that?
To shock you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all it is. And that, to me, that's just, I don't know. I kind of think of that as bad storytelling. It's a red herring, which we'll get into maybe a little bit here, but I think this story has a little too many of those. Phantom Stranger shows up and warns Batman that Wonder Woman is going after the box and she needs to be stopped. Wonder Woman convinces members of Batman's team, which that was a really interesting scene, where she converts some of Batman's team to go with her. Steve Trevor's there and basically is trying to order some of them, like what's her name? The gal in the purple suit? Black Orchid. Oh, gosh.
Black Orchid? Yeah.
Yeah. Basically orders her to stick around, and she's like, "No, forget you, man."
Yeah. This is Wonder Woman, yeah.
Yeah, this is Wonder Woman.
That's my favorite part of the whole book was the picking sides.
Yeah.
So, okay, and seeing people walk off. Granted, a lot of them were ladies, but it's like, even Frankenstein's like, sorry, man, I'm going with the pure warrior, and it was just, I don't know, it was, pretty amusing. It's like, no, seriously, this is Wonder Woman. We're not gonna. I mean,
it was interesting too. Where Phantom Stranger's there. He says that box has nothing to do with what's happening to Superman, and Wonder Woman just doesn't want to listen, and lassos him and says to the group, "You say the box is not to blame, then tell me what is." He says, "I do not know," and then Wonder Woman's like, "Okay, listen, Batman would rather trust this guy who claims to know everything but tells you nothing. I'm done debating. I'm going after Pandora. Who's with me?" So. I don't know, Travis, what do you think? Do you think that this depiction of Wonder Woman in this issue is probably closer to the Wonder Woman we've been seeing in her own title than probably anything else we've seen in Wonder Woman outside of her own title to this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the first time she's taken charge and going, no, that she feels, that I think that she's actually, confident and has a plan and basically is taking charge. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a welcome change.
for sure.
So I hope they continue that as going forward.
No, she's coupled with Superman. She's going to be pathetic.
Well, that remains to be seen. Let's.
No, they've already shown it in this book. So
Anyway, so Zatanna. So again, they're picking sides. Zatanna says, Batman says, Zatanna, seal this area. No one leaves. She doesn't comply. She says, look, Batman, Constantine wants us to stay away from the box. And if I've learned anything in my life, it's when Constantine wants you to do one thing, the safe bet is to do the opposite.
Yep.
So there's a little fight ensues. Superman breaks out of Argus and heads off with Martian Manhunter and Cyborg. And we get the final scene here between the Outsider and Xanadu. And he declares, I have a mole among the Justice League. So Xanadu's vision in part 1 of this comes to pass. It's confirmed anyway. So there you go. And then you see all these tarot cards. And now that you've pointed out all those tarot cards in that one issue, I'm now looking at them, Travis, as I'm talking, to see if one is prominent more than another, perhaps. And I don't think so.
No.
It doesn't appear to be that way, so that's probably good. Although, wait. The one directly above his head. Yes. So if you were careful looking at that, yeah, you take the fact that it's it's not the closest one to him, but it's the one above his head. You know, sort of these ideas coming out of his head, sort of thing. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm making more out of it than I need to, but. All right. Anything else about that issue, Travis?
Nope.
All right. So then we get the Constantine tie-in. So in Justice League Dark, you see Constantine kind of taking Shazam aside, and they're talking, and they leave. And then what you get in Constantine number 5 is that story, and essentially, Constantine knows or feels that Shazam, if he's allowed to play in this game, Shazam will make things infinitely worse. So he decides to take Shazam out by stealing his power, which he does, just in time for a demon to show up. And so you get this cool scene where Constantine becomes Shazam for a few pages and rips this demon in half before Shazam basically takes his power back. That's about the effect or the events of that book. So it was a nice way to extrapolate what we saw in Justice League Dark to see what happened between those two characters, but I don't think it really plays a whole lot into the whole book, other than, again, another character, Constantine, is reiterating what Xanadu has already told us in previous issues, that Shazam is a major player in this and not necessarily a good one. So there's that. Then we get the other tie-in, Pandora number 2, where I thought Vandal Savage, who appears in this issue, steals the show, so to speak. He's there with Signal Man and Giganta, and they're off trying to track down Pandora and get the box from her. And so there's a big fight between Pandora and these characters. I'll get to that in a second. But like I said, Vandal Savage steals the show. The way that he derisively calls Signal Man by his name, which I thought was just a tiny little thing he does, but it's just so it says a lot about his character. And he also says, "You would tremble to learn my thoughts." I just those two little lines, that summed up Vandal Savage for me pretty well. Let's see. In the fight, Pandora takes out Giganta by blowing up her eye, which that was an interesting, but if not gruesome scene.
Yeah.
Then she shoots Vandal Savage in the head. And you know how the New 52 has been long criticized for being a bit more, I don't know, bloody in its books. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we get more of that here. Vandal Savage returns the favor by as he's recovering, and there's a gruesome little panel showing his eye hanging out of his head after she shoots him. Um, anyway, he returns the favor by snapping her neck. Of course, she recuperates because they're both immortal. So they're just going back and forth, tearing into each other. He demands the box, and she's like, "Wait, I want you to have it," because she's now trying the whole darkest of heart thing. And Vandal Savage had shown up before in Pandora #1, and so she's had these encounters with him. So she knows that this guy's pretty evil. So she figures, who better to give it to than Vandal Savage. Unfortunately, turns out Vandal Savage has a tiny sliver of a conscience. So apparently it doesn't work for him. The box does not open. And that's it for Pandora #2. The next tie-in, Travis, Phantom Stranger #11. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Pandora #2, Ray Fox, Daniel Sampier, and Vicente Cifuentes again. There you go. Oh, and I didn't talk about Constantine #5 is by Ray Fox and Renato Guedes. There you go. You're up now. Talk about Phantom Stranger #11.
Phantom Stranger #11. I don't actually have the comic book sitting right in front of me. I neglected to snatch it out, but so I can't tell you who all the creators are on it. It's DeMantis is the writer. I'm not sure who's doing art duties on that one because it's kind of each book seems to have a different artist working on it. Basic premise of the story is Phantom Stranger, Batman, Katana, Deadman. Can't think of anybody else who's going with them. They're going to go snatch. They're going to go attempt to snatch the soul of Dr. Light and bring him back, because in just a few prior issues of Phantom Stranger, he had already been in heaven once before, or at heaven's doors, trying to snatch his family back, and that didn't work out for him. But he ended up bringing somebody back to life, so he figures he could do it again. The one hitch is that he doesn't tell the other heroes. Is he's been informed by the angel Azrael that if he shows back up, that they will extinguish him from existence. So they venture off into heaven and get separated when they're having some fights with some needy souls, I guess, for lack of anything else to call them. And they each kind of fall into their own little world with their own little private heavens. And so we get to see some, I don't know, in my opinion, somewhat stereotypical, Katana's back with her husband in some nice, tranquil, Japanese garden. Phantom Stranger comes along and basically breaks it up and makes her mad. And she comes back to her senses that it's not real. It's just kind of a glimpse of what heaven could be for her. Batman's is him back as a child on like Christmas Eve, having Christmas stories told to him by his father while he sits with his mother. Everybody gets to see Batman's heaven. And then Phantom Stranger, after they shake Batman back to reality, Phantom Stranger erases their memories of having seen each other's heavens. And then before they can actually find Dr. Light, the angels show up, basically throw all the living people back to Earth, and they extinguish Phantom Stranger out of existence at the very end of the book. He's literally a pile of dust. And that's it.
And that's not the final issue of that series, right?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so he gets better.
Well, I don't know. That issue hasn't come out yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I assume so, since the series hasn't ended. He'll get better in some way.
Yeah, I guess.
And how convenient that he erases everybody's memory so that no one knows who Batman really is.
Right. They definitely do that. Yeah. So
wait, so you said that everybody could see Batman's fantasy, or?
Yeah, Batman's the last person. Batman's the last heaven they go to. They go to. I can't
so everybody's with Phantom Stranger when they arrive at that
Stranger, right?
Okay.
Right, and they kind of watch it, and it's like, oh wow, he's a Wayne, and then then he conveniently wipes them all their memories so they don't remember that.
So the angel basically throws the humans out of heaven.
If I remember correctly, yes.
Okay, because that confused me because of what we're shown in I believe the next issue of Justice League of America, or maybe it's Justice League. I can't remember now. Anyway, I'll get to that. So really nothing. Again, it's more like the Constantine issue where it's nothing really advances the overall story. It's just here's a little pocket story, that came out of the Trinity War series itself or storyline.
Yeah, the cynic in me says that it had more to do with let's get some Justice League people to read the Phantom Stranger book and hope the Phantom Stranger sales go up. Because it really didn't. I mean, because you really didn't. They do end up getting to. I guess they do end up getting to Light, and Light is really confused. Dr. Light's really confused, and really has nothing to tell them because because of his death, how abrupt his death was, he really has nothing to give them whatsoever. And then that's when the angels come up and basically flush them all out of heaven.
So it
was nothing. I mean, it was an attempt to do something, but it had no bearing really on the actual Trinity War thing whatsoever.
So imagine how Batman feels about this encounter. So he has this vision of him with his parents, which has got to be agonizing to him, and he's got no leads. He's no useful information came out of this event.
Right. It was a complete waste of time.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's go on. Part 4. This is Justice League of America number 7, again by Jeff Johns, Jeff Lemire, and Doug Mahnke. Finally, talk about the evil of the DC universe. Lex Luthor shows up. And he's distracted by the news that Superman, as the Daily Planet says, accused of manslaughter. And then, guess who shows up? Pandora. Because if Vandal Savage isn't the darkest of heart, well, I guess Lex Luthor must be next on her list.
Of course.
Which, I don't know. I guess I kind of would have went the other way around, but, that's me, outside of this universe looking in, from my long years of reading experience, going, yeah, it's really Lex Luthor that you should be going after. Let's see here. Which group is it? The Martian Manhunter group. Oh, Superman's group goes off because they find out that Dr. Psycho was in Kandak at the same time that the Superman was there. So they think that Dr. Psycho may have had something to do with what happened with Superman and Dr. Light. So they go off to find him, and do. And there's this little scene here, a few pages scene where they're fighting him. He causes Green Arrow to accidentally shoot Cyborg, which that was kind of neat. Poor Green Arrow. And then Superman shows up and scares the crap out of him. But then he falls down, passes out, and Psycho finds out that Superman is really Clark Kent. Oh, but then here's a recurring theme, Travis. Martian Manhunter will wipe that information from Psycho's mind, and then invades his mind to find out what he knows. Right. In the meantime, some other heroes, Green Lantern, Simon Baz, Green Lantern, Flash, Steve Trevor, and some of the other people, Catwoman and Violet, looks like, trying to get into the House of Mystery, and Green Lantern is not able to punch through it. But then Catwoman basically just asks the house to let them in, and it does. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty cool. And so this is why I asked you earlier about whether or not it was the angel that sent them out of heaven, because there's a scene where Phantom Stranger shows up in this mirror, and he's still, well, as Flash says, somewhere cloudy. Anyway, he says, "We attempted to interrogate Dr. Light's soul, but he knew nothing. I made a terrible mistake, and I'll pay the ultimate price. I have the strength enough to save your friends, if not myself." And then he sends them through the mirror.
Right.
So it made it to this. This clearly makes it sound like Phantom Stranger basically sent everybody out. So I thought that was interesting that what you said compared to this. So there's these little disconnects in these tie-ins in the main story. So not really anything really of it, but I find it interesting when things like that happen. They find out John Jones, not Jeff Johns. John Jones finds out from Psycho that he had nothing to do with Superman going crazy and killing Dr. Light. And here again, I have to check this, Travis, but I think every issue now we've had the Atom talk about how she basically has
betrayed
been
the Justice League.
Yeah, betraying. Well, I wouldn't say she's betrayed them yet so far, but she's definitely was sent in. She was sent in to spy on the Justice League by Amanda Waller. But she does say, I did lie to you. So again, we get the focus on the Atom fermenting dissent, I guess, in the end. So that's kind of how I took it. But on the surface, it appears like she feels bad about what is happening and she wants to come clean and help them out. Would you take it that way too?
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely was the case.
Yeah, she comes across as very sympathetic and you really want to you really kind of feel for the character in the predicament that she's in. So there's that. They go. Superman's group ends up going back to Amanda Waller, and then we go back to the scene with Lex Luthor and Pandora. She's just about ready to hand in the box as she says, "You can save us, Lex Luthor," and he just kind of stands there looking at her for a second, and then he starts reaching out and says, "All right." Yeah. Which, that's Lex Luthor to a T. I think. Yeah. I really think Johns has a good take on Lex Luthor, based on the stuff that I've seen from him. All Lex Luthor really wants is to be the hero, and convince everyone that he is the hero. So right. if he can be given the chance to save humanity or save the world, save the universe, whatever, of course he's going to take it. In his own way, of course. Anyway, Wonder Woman shows up, prevents her from doing that. Basically, they start fighting, and then she gets the box. And it corrupts her. She gets that third eye. So anytime anybody grabs the box and it affects them, they get this third eye, just like the box itself has, which reminds me of Despero.
Yeah.
And I believe at the beginning of this story there was mention of Despero, because Despero showed up in Justice League number 21, I believe, and then they touch on it a little bit in number 22 about how they've captured him and whatnot, yeah. Right? So yeah. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like there's some sort of connection there, or maybe it's just coincidental that there are three eyes. Other than the fact, it's a trinity, there's three eyes. So it may just be that, but it seems really odd that Despero shows up before this story starts, and here we are with this thing that affects you, and you get three eyes. Anyway. Again, maybe I'm just making more of it than I really.
Yeah, well.
And it's so it's so easy to because we've read the whole thing, knowing how it ends, to go back and look at this and go, oh, well, maybe that's a connection, or maybe this was a thing, or whatever. But I do remember distinctly thinking when I read this issue, a few weeks ago, that it seemed odd that there's this connection. But like I said, maybe nothing. Okay, anything about this issue, Travis, that you wanted to point out that I haven't?
No. I mean, I at this point, I'm back to really, like I said, the this one I really liked. I thought the part with Catwoman, but the fact, I just asked to come into the House of Mystery and let her in. I thought that was amusing. You find out that Dr. Psycho, he's a creep, obviously, but what a vicious badass Martian Manhunter is in this new DC universe. the level to which he will, tap into people's heads and just kind of do whatever. I mean, because he doesn't just get the information out of this guy. I mean, he basically, looks like the pictures make it look like he, literally bores into the guy's head and, wipes him out. I don't know. Coming out of this whole thing, I just think that probably Martian Manhunter is probably one of the most powerful people in the new DC universe, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's really interesting, isn't it, that we haven't seen a whole lot of him. I mean, he was in the Stormwatch for a bit.
Yeah.
And he showed up, a tiny bit in Justice League and mostly flashbacks. And now he's been in the Justice League of America, but they really haven't done anything with him.
Well, that's coming. We're going to see a lot more of him because I think Justice League of America is going to become a Martian Manhunter book for a little bit, isn't it?
Well, aren't they doing the backup story is going to be Martian Manhunter?
It's going to be the main story. It has been the backup story has been Martian Manhunter, right? But I think it's going to be the main story for a bit, isn't it?
Okay.
That was my impression. So.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Same here. I think he's cool. I've always liked him, but I mean, he seems more vicious now than what he used to be. And
yeah.
Because of that attitude, it just makes him that much more, I don't know, scary and deadly and more powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think given his list of powers, and along with that badass attitude that he has now, he is, I think, the most powerful character in the DC universe. As far as the people that we've seen.
But there's something else about him I want to talk about when we get to the end of this and talk about the whole thing as a whole. So.
Okay, let's move on. Here's another tie-in. Pandora number 3, Ray Fox, Daniel Sampier, Vicente Fuentes again. Okay, Travis, this will be really quick. So some stuff that she learned from one of her mentors, that we saw in that training montage back in issue number 1. She comes to realize thousands of years or hundreds of years later, I don't remember what it is, that if she just thinks about something differently, she can actually affect change in how she deals with the sins. That's pretty much it. I'm dropping Pandora after that issue.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Part 5. Here we go, the last 2 bits. The penultimate issue of the Trinity War. Justice League Dark number 23. Jeff Lemire, Michael Janin again. Wonder Woman is possessed by the box. So the Justice League Dark try to stop her. Shazam shows up and takes the box. He Shazams,
Oh, that's awesome.
And turns into, he's got, again, the 3 eyes when that happens, but now his suit's black, so he looks like Black Adam.
Yeah, it's different, but he looks like Black Adam. But that splash page is huge.
Oh,
I mean, if you look at... Yeah, so he's affecting all of magic.
Yes.
When he does his thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did want to point that out. He does the Shazam. Although, okay, let's back up. He takes the box. He says, and he gets affected by it. He says, "It's mine." And Xanadu says, "Oh God, no!" And then he says, "Shazam." Why does he say Shazam?
To gather more power.
He's already Shazam.
But he's going to gather more power. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's taking power from all over. So he must have, when he gets corrupted, he must have some sense that there's more power to be gathered, and he's going to take the power of the box and whatnot.
Well, or this is how I took it, Travis. The box is the one that knows there's this power, and Shazam is the conduit.
Well, okay.
By which the box can then take that power.
Okay.
So
that makes sense for what we find out at the last issue, what the box really is.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. What I found interesting, so that 2-page spread that we have here, you got all these magical, I guess, characters. You got Swamp Thing. You've got Amethyst, which is nice to see.
Who's in a different dimension.
Yeah, different. Oh, well wait a second.
Yeah.
Deadman. The guy in the bottom is that Andrew Bennett?
Jason Blood.
Oh, that's Blood.
Andrew Blood.
No.
Well, no, he's got teeth. You're right. It is Bennett.
Yeah,
It
with
is Bennett.
the shock of white hair. At first, for the longest time, I didn't
Okay.
know who it was, and then I kept examining that picture, and then I finally see the white hair. I'm
Thanks.
like, oh, it's yeah, and you know what? I didn't even notice the fangs until just now, so until you just pointed it out to me. Anyway, Andrew Bennett, the Demon, Animal Man, who is floating above some stadium, and this is the one that really I thought was very interesting. Um,
Earth
Doctor
2.
Fate of Earth 2.
Yeah.
So I get to this and go, whoa,
Yeah.
it's transdimensional in this. So what? How does this all tie together? Of course, now knowing what we now know about the ending, that
Right.
makes total sense. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Moving on. Hold on. Check my notes here. Yeah, so we see the mystical surge, or I don't know if it's a surge or if it's what you want to call it, but anyway, we see all those people being affected, but because of that, Deadman is now able to find out where Xanadu is. So Batman's team heads off to find Xanadu. Everybody else is still fighting over the darn box. Until Constantine shows up and takes it.
Yeah.
Which, that was a really cool scene because Zatanna says, or was it Zatanna? Yeah, Zatanna is concerned about that because it affects everybody. But Constantine's like, I'm pretty dark and black in my soul, so it doesn't really affect me. So if that's the case, why didn't Pandora seek Constantine out?
Because he's not evil though,
Well, but
right?
again, how do we define blackest of heart? Yes,
I
the
don't know.
the traditional interpretation is that's evil. I don't necessarily believe that's true, but I how is Vandal Savage? Yes, he does. I guess he's evil
But
by our standards. Lex
yeah,
Luthor is too, but at the same time, it's like Constantine he's a pretty dark character. So
sure. But my interpretation of Constantine also is that Constantine wouldn't have picked that box up without having been prepared for it. So who's to say that he doesn't have some magic going in the first place to kind of let him walk off with it and basically, act like it's no big deal, but that who's to say he doesn't have some some special something going to, do you know what I mean? To keep him from getting nailed. Does Batman grab that book, grab the skull at some point?
I think that happens in the next issue.
And it doesn't affect him either, right?
I don't think he's given,
No, he doesn't touch it. He doesn't touch it.
but
So
it's still
Constantine's the only person to touch it,
yeah in this issue
and not be affected.
yes yeah and so
Him and
far
Pandora.
he's he's the only person besides Pandora that seemingly is unaffected by it when actually touching it. But we do see in this issue that even being in its presence has an effect on you.
Right. Yeah, everybody's crazy.
And I do like, so Batman shows up during this fight after Constantine grabs it, and I love the balls on Batman. Basically, he just comes in and says, "Hold it right there," as if everybody's going to stop because he said so. But they
Right.
do. But they do.
Yeah.
Anyway, we here we go at the end of it. Xanadu finally, to everybody else, she's just kind of babbling. At first she said, it's not a prison. She says, I see it. They tried to keep me blind, but I saw it. I saw what it really is. Pandora was wrong. You were all wrong. It's not a prison. It's a doorway. So that again, we get that connection where before when Shazam did his thing, that transdimensional connection. And then the outsider shows up and says, yep, she's right. It's a doorway. And now it's time to open it. Okay. Anything else you want to mention about this issue, Travis?
No. Other than now's about the time the internet spoiled the book for me. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
See, I purpose.
because well, okay. So what did you avoid? Did you avoid the fact that the crime syndicate was coming?
Yes, I had no idea.
You didn't know at all that the crime syndicate was going to be part of the Forever Evil stuff.
Oh,
Okay,
what? No,
because
wait. I don't remember now. It's all kind of blurring
see,
together.
for me, as soon as I mean, I didn't go and look stuff up and whatnot, but I mean, it's just the general news that was out there, not spoilers, but the general news that was out there was is Jeff John had announced that the crime syndicate was going to be in the there's going to be a main part of the Forever Evil thing,
Yeah, I
and
did.
as
I
soon as he
did hear
said
that.
that, it was like son of a, because then you could just for me, I could start putting stuff together.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, then it was like, oh, then I don't know that. I mean, the next issue's still cool, but that, like I said, about that point, I kind of knew what was going into this next issue.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I do remember now hearing about that and going, oh yeah. So I guess that's how it ends. But still, I tend to think of those things like, okay, I may know a plot point, but I don't know how the story unfolds. So I just kind of file that information in the back of my mind, and I just try to enjoy the story for what it is in the moment. So I try not to let it affect me one way or another. One thing I forgot to mention, I do want to mention about this issue. So far, we've seen Amanda Waller basically reacting to a lot of things, and she tries to have a certain amount of control over her Justice League of America, and it's not working out very well. Especially in this issue, Green Arrow has an arrow pointed right at her, and this
Yeah,
is where Firestorm tells people that Waller had him make kryptonite, and everybody's going, "Oh well, she's not very
they
good."
they should give the box to her.
Yeah, that's right. uh, but what was interesting to me is that the characterization of Waller basically not having any control whatsoever of the situation is counter to what we've seen so far of her character in other places, in Suicide Squad and Justice League of America, where she seems to have a lot of control over what's going on, over the players involved, and everything that we've seen. So I just thought it was really interesting that to see how that power for her, that control, is unraveling here very, very quickly.
Yeah, but
Um,
I think that's why she hates the Justice League so much, right? Because she has no control over them. So she tried creating her own group of superpowered people to counteract that, and once they're out in the wild, it is definitely gotten out of her control.
mhm. I don't know.
I think it's all personal. I think it's got less to do with the government needs to have somebody control this as much as it is Waller has to have control over it all.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Definitely. Okay, let's move on to the final issue, Trinity War, Part 6, Justice League number 23 by Jeff Johns, Ivan Reyes, Joe Prado on inks this time, Heber Ferreira, and Eau Claire Albert involved in this. All right, so basically the first few pages of this is the outsider letting us in on the backstory, and which I'm usually not a big fan of this kind of revelation, but it's been a while now, so I guess this it's appropriate to find out what's going on. As he says, it started out 5 years ago when Darkseid came to, I'm going to call it Prime Earth because that seems to be what they're referring to this Earth, whose books we mostly read. So anyway, Darkseid comes to Prime Earth, and in doing so, he weakened the barriers between the universe. And the outsider came through one of those portals, I guess. And but he says, but my master did not make it. And what you see in this panel is presumably the outsider coming through with a female character. So in
Mm-hmm.
Justice League number 6, at the end of Justice League number 6, we see him with this male character. But here we see him coming through the portal with a female character, which
Right.
obviously will be a big thing here in just a little bit. So anyway, he takes it the outsider takes him arriving on this Earth. His mission is to save his master, whoever that is. While he does this, he watches the Justice League and the superheroes rise, and so decides that he needs to create his own society. But before that, he discovers the existence of Pandora's box. He recognized it, he says. He knew where it came from and what it could do. And that's when he decides to make his own secret society. There's this one panel here, though, shortly after he arrives on Prime Earth, where for the first year he struggled to comprehend the culture and rules of this bizarre place. Even the very basic of ideas appeared twisted and turned inside out. And there's this panel of him looking at a map of the world, and he says, "East is west and west is east," which is very important when you find out who arrives at the end. Well, I'll come back to that. Anyway, so he does that. And so he calls himself the outsider as he creates his secret society. We go back to the heroes, and again, the box is affecting everybody, or so Constantine thinks. So there's this again 2-page spread of showing all the heroes. Oh yeah, here we go, Travis. Here is a picture of Batman in the right behind Constantine, and he looks like he's going after the. Well, it appears like he's being affected.
Right.
I don't know that that's necessarily true, considering what happens next. But anyway, everybody's after Constantine to get the box, which that was interesting. He's again not affected, which I kind of wish. I don't know. I felt like they should have done something more with that than what we see here. But the plot must move on, as do we. He loses the box. He gets blasted by a firestorm, and the box goes flying. Batman grabs it, but with a strap of some sort. Batman being Batman, he knows better than to touch it. But the box is still affecting everyone. Steve Trevor goes off about how he doesn't care what happens to Superman because Superman stole Wonder Woman from him. The new Green Lantern traps Batman with his ring. I'm not afraid of you, Batman. I'm the Green Lantern. And of course, Batman says, "But you're no Hal Jordan." And this scene is directly from the Free Comic Book Day New 52 issue. Although from a different perspective or different angle. So I thought that was kind of nice. And then of course you get that, like you said, that 2-page spread where it's basically that 2-page spread from the Free Comic Book Day version. Although things are a little different. If you compare the two, there are some characters in this issue that were not shown in the Free Comic Book Day, which I'm not criticizing that it should be exactly the same or that perhaps that they were misleading us with that. I just find it interesting, especially the picture of the Atom in here. Obviously the Atom shows up in the story as a female, whereas I think in that Free Comic Book Day issue, the Atom's hair is showing in Justice League 23, but in that Free Comic Book Day issue, the Atom has a full head mask, so there's no hair there. So you could think it was a male, Ray Palmer perhaps, because he hadn't shown up all that much. He hadn't shown up as the Atom definitely at that point.
As the Atom, but he was in Frankenstein Agents of Shade.
Right. But I do remember, Travis, and maybe you do too. I do remember some speculation after that image came out on Free Comic Book Day that, or maybe I'm just confusing some events that happened later. But I thought I remember people chattering about how it looked like a female Atom in that Free Comic Book Day issue.
Yes.
So there
didn't
you go.
Have hair, but a figure.
Yeah. So the fight continues. Mira shows up, only it's not Mira. I thought that was interesting that Martian Manhunter would take on that form.
Yeah.
I guess to get close to Aquaman. I don't know. It was a weird kind of 2 panels there. I'm not sure why that was. Let's see. Wonder Woman is talking to Superman. Again, he's being affected by the box because he thinks that Wonder Woman's going after Batman because she wants to be with him, not that she wants to get the box. So you got that whole jealousy thing. And Superman is about ready to kill Batman, at least it appears so. And we get yet another 2-page spread with Superman and Wonder Woman duking it out. Superman saying, "I won't stop until Batman is dead," and Batman's in the background, waiting to see what happens, I guess. Because what do you do when you're Batman? You've got two of the most powerful people on the planet fighting in front of you. One of them trying to kill you. What do you do? Well, what happens is
that likes to win.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, what happens is he gets blown back from the concussive force of those two going after each other, and he loses the box, which it makes a sound and appears like the power within it is going. It looks like it's powering down, I guess. And Zatanna says it's gone dormant for the moment. So with the box not active, Wonder Woman wonders, well, why is the box hurting Superman physically but not us? And that's when we find out that Superman has a microscopic sliver of kryptonite in his brain. So that's what happened there. And the reveals now start coming fast and furious. Cyborg wonders, well, how did kryptonite get in his brain? And then the Atom, who's on Cyborg's shoulder, says, well, that's an easy question to answer, Cyborg. I put it in there. And so she reveals how during the confrontation with Shazam and Kandak, she went into Superman's ear and put this sliver of kryptonite into his brain. It hit a nerve, and that caused his heat vision to go crazy. And she says, and there's this great little panel on this page, Travis, where it's just her talking, and she's got her index finger up here waving, looks like. It says, and she says, I know you thought I was part of the Justice League and that the JLA thinks I work for them, but the truth is I don't work for any of you.
Yeah.
And Cyborg looks at her and says, so you're a traitor? And like I said, the reveals come fast and furious because she goes, oh, Vic, honey, so are you. And at which point, this is where Victor's cyborg parts go crazy, and there's this great 1 1/3 page bit showing basically the pieces, the metal pieces of Cyborg basically coming off of his body. It's kind of gruesome in some ways as well. Batman yells Victor, because Batman seems really concerned with Victor, more so than any other character so far that we've seen. And then that's when the reveal is that Grid has been inside of Cyborg all this time. And he starts blasting away. Well, then the Outsider grabs the box, and the box is starting to power up. I don't know why. Didn't that seem kind of odd to you that it would go dormant for just a bit and then just power up all by itself? Yeah. It seems to suggest that as soon as Grid comes online, then the box does too. But I'm not sure of the connection there between those two. Were you going to say something?
Well, it's science. I mean, he does say, the Outsider does say it's science.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's not magic, that it's science. So obviously there's some, I would guess some sort of scientific answer as to why that powers up, and maybe it does have to do with Grid.
But it's revealed, as you said, Outsider says it's not a magical thing, this box. It's a scientific thing. It was created on my world long ago and left here. All this time you searched this world for someone who could open the box, but only someone from our world can do that, Pandora. So, and I'll get to the next bit here in a second, but Grid, I believe it's revealed that Grid is, it must be later in this. I'm not finding it right away. I thought the Outsider encountered Grid here on Prime Earth. So how could Grid be affecting the box if he's not from another world?
Okay. Yeah, good point.
So anyway, I'm not saying that's incorrect. Maybe there is a connection there, but Um, anyway, so the Outsider reveals that, like the Mother Box, this is only one of many, and like the Mother Box, Pandora's Box can open a gateway to another universe, our universe, the birthplace of evil. And you can insert the evil laugh here. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yes, thank you.
While he's talking, basically the heroes are trying to get at him and the box, but the box is releasing this power, this white kind of energy, and it's keeping everybody away while he's monologuing. All this time you were looking for who was behind this. As you say on your world, the butler did it.
Did it? Yes.
And there's a portal, someone's coming through, and you get this really cool image of a really kick-ass looking Aquaman.
I love that scene.
Yeah, missing. He did this Aquaman just like Aquaman did in the DC universe past. He's missing a hand. He's got this. I don't know how you describe that.
The hook.
The hook.
It's a hook.
It's yeah. Anyway, he comes through and he's got the same trident, but he's dressed in looks like purplish armor instead of the orange armor that our Aquaman wears. Anyway, he looks pretty cool. But then he drops dead.
Yeah, I love that.
That was great. Although I was kind of hoping that we would see this group's evil Aquaman in here, but apparently that
I just wonder if this is some sort of like inside joke with Jeff Johns.
I think it is.
He's been writing Aquaman, and then to have because later on you get to the next page. At the end of the next page, it's like, well, even though the Sea King didn't make it, as the rest of them are stepping through. I don't know. It just seems like It seemed like a joke. To me, it seemed like kind of a laugh at the whole Aquaman thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Aquaman's lame, so therefore he must die. Okay. So anyway, but in opening the portal, it looks like the Pandora says the box has been destroyed. Xanadu says, but evil hasn't been imprisoned, Pandora, only unleashed. The Trinity, it wasn't about you. It was the number, the true number of evil. 3. Earth 3.
Why would you refer to some place as Earth 3? I don't know. I mean, I understand why we refer to it as Earth 3 because it's the only way we can have a conversation about it. But really, the people in the universe refer to it as Earth 3 and 2 and
yeah, exactly
1 and
it's a comic book conceit that we as readers all just accept. As you say, how else can we refer to these Earths if we don't identify them, right? But exactly right. Who makes these decisions? Who publishes the map of the universe so that you know that it's Earth 3 as opposed to Earth 22, or whatever?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. But for us, longtime readers who know these characters and know what Earth 3 is about, it's like, oh my God, here we go.
Yeah.
And then you get yet another. I think this is the third 2-page splash in this book, and you get the crime syndicate.
That's an awesome page.
Showing up with Ultraman, Superwoman, Power Ring, Johnny Quick, Owlman, and Deathstorm.
Right.
Which,
and the dead Aquaman.
And the dead Aquaman, yeah. But Deathstorm, I thought that was an interesting inclusion to this.
Yeah.
So there you go. They step through. Batman is basically trying to take care of Cyborg when this happens. He's like, everybody regroup now. And then Adam jumps over to Johnny Quick and he calls her Atomica. So she's one of them. So you got right. Atomica now with Deathstorm joining the traditional crime syndicate group. I find it interesting, Travis. Power Ring here is more or less he's afraid of everything. So he's the opposite of Hal Jordan.
Right.
In that he fears everything instead of being fearless, which is an interesting, I guess, take on the character, whereas everybody else seems to be more or less, I don't know, the same that we've seen these characters before. So it's interesting, but an odd take, I guess. Let's see. The Outsider goes over to Owlman and kneels in front of him and says, "Welcome home, Master Thomas." And Owlman says, "It took you long enough, Alfred." Here, Travis. Here's the grid thing. Outsider introduces the grid to Owlman or the group, and Adam says, or Atomica
right.
says, I met him when I was hacking into Cyborg. So there you go. He's and also Grid is a sentient computer virus from this world with aspirations beyond corrupting files. So anyway, so there you go. There's that. Power Ring keeps going on about how, everything looks dangerous, and Superwoman responds with, and this is when I want to talk about that first image from Justice League number 22, Travis. Superwoman says, if we have anything to worry about, Power Ring, it's our prisoner. And it shows her holding her version of the lasso with this hooded figure. This male hooded figure. Who is that? We should have left the bastard on our world. So, yeah, who the hell is that? So I assume that this is the guy that...
It's Lex Luthor, right?
I hadn't thought of that, but that makes perfect sense given the crime syndicate.
Yeah, it's the world of opposites. Wouldn't Lex Luthor be like the only superhero on the planet?
Is this Alexander Luthor from the the previous DC universe? Yeah, that's great. So I took this guy to be the guy that Batman refers to in that first issue.
Yeah.
Now and then the issue ends with the splash page with them, with the crime syndicate going forward, apparently to attack the group of heroes, and Ultraman claiming this world now belongs to the crime syndicate. To be continued in Forever Evil #1.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. So, wow. I mean, this was all these last 6 issues and plus the tie-ins, leading up to this. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty damn good story, even though, it was the ending was telegraphed.
There's no end. My problem is that my biggest issue with it is it didn't have an ending. I didn't feel like. I mean, it just immediately goes right into something else. So it doesn't. I wanted there to be. I guess I was reading this with the expectation there would be an end at it, and then when the evil things started getting talked about, then I got concerned that this wasn't really going to be it. What if I don't want to read an event book, which generally I don't want to read an event book? I'm left with no end to the story.
You mean in terms of the? Well, I mean,
there's no resolution.
Okay, so let's assume for a second that Forever Evil isn't happening. You could easily assume that they would continue the story in the Justice League books. It would just be a longer tale. I mean, they wouldn't just end it with the crime syndicate just coming to our world and that's it.
Well, right, but is the next issue of these Justice League books going to continue to tell the story?
Or are you assuming that Forever Evil will tell this story and then that will be your ending?
That would be my assumption is that the Forever Evil is going to tell the rest of the story that has to do with the crime syndicate. And that's where the main thing is going to be. And in these titles, there's going to be little bits and pieces of picking up pieces.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't go read the Forever Evil title, I won't know the full extent of the actual story that this all built up to, because this all just built up to the crime syndicate popping out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's all it was.
I understand that. I think you have a valid complaint there. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, now I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Forever Evil, and more so than what I was originally going to be. Because originally Forever Evil was an event book, and of course my cynicism drops in of, oh boy, an event book, lots of spin-offs and all the malarkey that goes along with that. And this gets me excited for it. This definitely, wets my whistle to see what's next. What's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
So the event book feels organic because I read the Justice League books. Forever Evil feels organic in being an event book, as opposed to everything's just going normal and all of a sudden they decide they're going to do an event book, so something happens.
Mm-hmm.
Just out of the blue, Starro comes down, or space aliens, or whatever. Something happens to create an event. This made it feel more organic to have an event book now happen. But I don't know what that's like for people who don't read any of the Justice League books, but think they want to read the Forever Evil book.
Well, you've read Forever Evil #1, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay, without spoiling anything, because I haven't read it, can you talk about how the story continues in Forever Evil #1?
No.
Is it? No, you can't.
No.
Okay.
I don't want to. I mean, there's really any way for me to talk about that without giving stuff away to you.
Okay.
And I want to read it, and I want to read it again. I've read it once. I want to read it again, thinking about it. If I hadn't read the Justice League stuff, what would that be like? As best I can.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that on a future episode because
sure.
What we plan to do, everyone, is we're gonna talk about Forever Evil, probably in 2 chunks is my plan. So we'll continue this discussion in a future episode, like I said. So I'm looking forward to that. I guess my take on what your question about how it doesn't end is that I agree with you, but since I was going to get Forever Evil anyway, I just to me, Trinity War was a prelude to what Forever Evil will be. So I just kind of took it as this is the first part of the story, and now we're going to get the next part of the story. So I guess I'm one of those comic book readers that doesn't really care about that too much because I know it's continuing.
I don't like having my books that I read on a monthly basis messed with by having an event pop into it and not get the whole story within the book I'm reading without being forced to have to go read something else.
Well, especially
and that continues to be my beef with most of those kinds of things.
Yeah,
so.
and I agree with you. I see that point. And especially because Trinity War, because it was so tied into the Justice League books, it seemed like it would be self-contained, at least at first. As we were leading up to it, I guess, my thought was, here's this nice line event that we would get a story. Of course, as time went on and they started talking about Forever Evil, it was quickly that idea was quickly thrown aside because it was told to us that what the events of Trinity War would lead directly into Forever Evil. So I guess I just kind of accepted that, and I read all the event books from both Marvel and DC. So it never occurs to me that I would be missing anything because I'm going to read it anyway. But again, you have a perfectly valid point. I just think that's the nature of event comics and how they want to tie in the non-event books, their main books, into it for whatever reason they do that. Okay, so but you enjoyed it overall, right?
Yeah.
This story.
I mean, I have some questions about some things, but yeah, I enjoyed it as a whole.
Let's talk about those questions. I have questions too. What are your questions?
Why? I don't understand how they got duped so much by the fake Adam. With Martian Manhunter, who seems to have a habit of poking his head in everybody else's heads, he wouldn't have caught that. That's one of the things that I question about. I mean, because in the Justice League book, he seems to pick through everybody's head, whether they necessarily want him to or not. Before they sent this double agent over to be, before the Justice League of America sent a double agent to be part of Justice League, you're telling me Waller wouldn't have said, hey, Martian Manhunter, pick this lady's brain to make sure we can trust her to be our inside person, and he wouldn't have discovered that she's not from here. To me, that's one of the things about it was like, oh, okay. And then really the question doesn't really play much of a role at all in it. The very last issue, there's a little bit in there that he's trying to get the box, and he's like, if I can open the box and get the answers, when I had the answers of who I am and what I am, and Pandora makes some statement like, if you were to open the box, it would make you far more dangerous than the box would ever be, or something like that. Well, what does that mean? And so are we done with those characters? Are we done with the Trinity of Sin being really the Trinity of Sin, other than the characters still exist in the in the DC universe? I mean, what was the point? I mean, why were they tied into this? Were they tied into this because way back they had a different story that they kind of, because of those teasers and that stuff years ago or a year ago, they had to kind of keep him in because they kind of implied that they were part of it. I don't know. I don't know. That character seemed kind of not worth a whole lot in the book. Even more so than obviously the characters that are just kind of standing around as scenery anyway. I mean, Aquaman in this whole thing, he's just a piece of scenery as a general rule, which is fine, because not all the characters have to have lines and be involved, but they kind of act like the Question was involved, and then he's kind of really not. And I guess I want to know about the character, and I guess that's why I'm questioning now. He was there, but he's not there because he doesn't have a book, and I've always liked the Question. I don't know what I think of this new Question because there's not enough of him for us to really know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of dangling plot points, right? And so my questions have to do with that too. So, as the outsider reveals, if only a person from Earth 3 could open the box, then how did Pandora open it? Is she from Earth 3?
Good point.
Or did the council do something to somehow allow her to affect it? Are the sins, the 7 deadly sins, are they from Earth 3? Because it says, outsider says, and maybe this is hyperbole on his part, but he says that basically the Earth 3 universe is the birthplace of evil. And if the 7 deadly sins are, evil incarnate, in their way, are they from Earth 3? Or is, because you can open, the box is can open up doorways, are they from another universe?
And where is that Council of Wizards from? If they're the ones that, is the Council of Wizards? Of course, I guess they say that Zeus was with the Council of Wizards and they got Pandora to open it up, right, at one point?
Yeah.
And that's why they had yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So she must be, right? She has, unless evil Alfred Pennyworth is wrong, and somebody besides Earth 3 people can open it up. Yeah, she has to be, doesn't she? It'll be interesting.
Yeah, and then
because I don't remember offhand seeing any of the Trinity of Sin in Forever Evil. Offhand, I can't remember seeing any of them in that first issue.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
And your point about the Question and how the Trinity of Sin all deal with this now, if they don't play some major role in this, I'll be very disappointed. Considering how much lead in that they have created into the story.
Yeah.
And then finally, I guess my final question. And your comment about Martian Manhunter, I think that's a great point too. I just wanted to let you know that. But my final question is this the evil that Pandora talked about at the end of Flashpoint number 5?
I don't know, and I just can't. I don't know. It surprises me they've referenced as much. They would reference that much stuff back to Flashpoint, but. Because then it leads me to start questioning, well, what the heck was the whole New 52 relaunch, reboot thing all about in the first place?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean, because I haven't been able to track it down yet, but I am sure as hell going to find it where, if it's not Dan Didio, it's somebody like that quoting, saying that one of the reasons they were doing the New 52 was to get a clean slate, to unmuddy the waters by making just one world, and now we've, opened the floodgates to, Earth 2 started the floodgates open, and now we got Earth 3 opening the floodgates to multiple dimensions with, basically the same character from multiple places and whatnot. And doesn't that just make everything confusing again?
See, I didn't take that comment though to mean that they wanted to have fewer multiverses or fewer versions of Earth. It was an excuse to bring in Vertigo and Wildstorm stuff into a main DC universe. So it was a publishing conceit that they somehow crammed into this idea, but then try to prop it up by saying that this is the only way to bring these 3 ideas or universes, if you will. Although I didn't really think of Vertigo as a separate universe.
No.
Because a lot of those characters did show up in the main DC universe anyway. But anyway, they've muddied that up with the 2 different Constantines. Regardless, They tried to prop it up in that by combining these universes into one, they strengthen it to prepare them for this coming evil. And while I agree that the crime syndicate is, evil, because they're the opposites of our heroes.
Right.
Are they? I don't know. They're bad. They're bad people and they do evil things, but I don't know. They don't strike me as evil with a capital E, evil force coming into the DC universe. I don't know, it's just a weird, I don't know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now that I'm talking about that, I just wanted to mention I talked to how the Outsider said that East is West and West is East thing. So I went back and I have these Crisis on Multiple Earths trades that I've been reading, and there's the first appearance of the Crime Syndicate is in Justice League number 29, I think it was. Pretty sure that's the issue. I hope it is. Yes, it is. Where they first show up, and they talk about Earth 3. History repeats itself in a reverse way. For instance, Columbus did not discover America. Columbus was an American who discovered Europe. Not only that, but colonial England won her freedom from the United States in the Revolutionary War of 1776. It was actor Abe Lincoln who shot President John Wilkes Booth. And flash forward several hundred years, and you get the Crime Syndicate.
Yep.
So there's that whole East is West, West is East thing. So I thought that was a nice throwback to the first appearance of these characters.
So you like that? You like them going back and mining, the whole Outsider thing, being a clue to us that this is an Alfred Pennyworth. Maybe we wouldn't know that it was, that the whole Earth 3 part of it. But do you like that when they do that? Even though they've restarted. Even though they've, 2 years ago they restarted the DC universe, flushed all the old basically, and are starting new with, new stuff for new readers, and then they go and use kind of a clue like that has to do with something that was from a long time ago.
Yes, I don't mind that at all, actually. I mean, they still can have their clean slate because these are still, quote unquote, new characters in the universe. But you still have that tie to the past in different ways. This Outsider is different from the one that showed up in the Silver Age.
Sure.
So, but it's like
okay, I was just curious.
It's like our superhero movies now, or superhero TV shows, where you get these, what we call Easter eggs. But it's really, just these little bits for the fans who actually read the comics. People watching Arrow, for example, and I've only watched a few episodes, but I hear people talking about it, and comic book fans, know what this element that they're showing in Arrow is, but people coming into it never having read a comic before, they may not get it, but it still doesn't matter. But it's just a nice little touch that the producers and the writers of the show throw in there for those of us who are in the know. And I take this kind of stuff like the Outsider and the whole Earth 3 concept and all that kind of stuff. Just to me it's a nice throwback. Yeah, it's nice knowing that kind of stuff, but it's new and presented in a different, slightly different way, at least, that it doesn't feel like we're just repeating the past. So I think they're accomplishing their mission still while still bringing in concepts and characters from DC's past. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not they're successful at it is a different story. It remains to be seen in this case.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we about talked this subject to death, Travis.
Yep.
Let's see here. Any final words on Trinity War?
No, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a fun romp.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. For the most part, like I said, the interesting things to me are those little character bits that I talked about. Especially between Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Just that's the kind of stuff that I wish we would get more of in general in all the titles. I feel like the DC universe is a lot of plot and not much characterization right now out of all the books that I'm reading, and I wish that was not the case. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Forever Evil unfolds. We have all those questions that we talked about. So will those be answered, or will they remain dangling plot points? What happens to Vic Stone now that his cyborg parts are basically extracted from him? Is he no longer going to be part of the Justice League, or what's going on with that? I feel bad for poor Vic Stone. They threw him in as a member of the Justice League, and while it made sense within the story that they told about it, it seemed like an odd thing, because Cyborg's never really been part of the Justice League, despite the Superpowers animated series. But they've never really done anything with him as a character in Justice League. He was instrumental in that first story, helping out, but they don't really do anything in the Justice League title itself. I mean, they've only had really 3 major stories in the title.
Yeah.
And they never really show the characters interacting. It's always about them reacting to the villain of the month sort of thing. So I don't know.
Agreed. I'm curious to see about all 3 of these books, what happens to them going out the other side of this whole thing.
Yeah.
We do know that ultimately the fallout from the Justice League of America book is they end up in Canada. So for a period of time, anyway.
The Justice League Canada story.
So it'll be interesting to see what is. I hope, your criticism of the Justice League book, I think is dead on. And it's one of the things that makes me always debate on whether or not I'm going to drop the book, because nothing seems to happen in it, and there is very little characterization in it. And what little bit there has been, I haven't been real happy with.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole Superman, Wonder Woman stuff, like them going out to dinner and the whole look like I wear glasses and I got a secret identity malarkey. I haven't cared for that. So I've been hanging on to the book, waiting for the Trinity War to see what it was going to be about, because I was interested in it. I enjoyed it enough. I'll now wait and see what this is like going out the other side to determine whether or not I keep picking the book up.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do that, aren't you? I mean, because whatever comes out in October, that will still be, I assume, be tying into Forever Evil, and so we have probably at least several months worth of stories that have to do with that, and so you're looking at issues that are coming out in 2014 before you really get a sense of what direction Justice League is going in after Forever Evil is done. Don't you think?
Right. Yeah, I think so, for sure. I don't see how it could be otherwise. I mean, I don't see how. I mean, I know that October's issue definitely is tied into that. If you look at the solicitations, the covers are all black because they talk about the fact that evil's taken over and won everything. But I can't imagine after just 1 month that suddenly all those titles will go back to business as usual while the Forever Evil thing's going on. That wouldn't make much sense, I would
obviously
think.
They could do that, but I think it would be a mistake.
Yeah.
So those conniving bastards, they're keeping us on, for those of us who want to see how things work out for probably almost a year.
Yeah. At least 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, at least 6 months. You're right. Yeah. Okay, I think we're done, Travis. My voice is starting to get a little talked out, so let's get out of here. Everybody, thanks for listening. I really appreciate you hanging on to this, hanging on with us, talking about Trinity War. And like I said, we'll be following that up very soon with a look at Forever Evil. So come back and join us for that. Please let me know what you thought of our thoughts on Trinity War and what your thoughts are and your ideas for how things are going to work out, and your questions. I'd really like to hear what other people have to say. What are the dangling plot points that you have, or what are the things where you're like, well, what about this and what about that character? So I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on that. And you can let me know that by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also leave voicemail at 208-953-1841. I'd love to get some voicemail and with your permission, play them on the air if you'd like. Travis, anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. Looking forward to Forever Evil.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thanks for listening, everybody.